What's up guys, Sean here, and it is time for another knife review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Cold Steel Code 4 in Cts-Xhp blade steel. Now unfortunately this model is no longer made in, which is one of my favorite blade steels, Cts-Xhp. Currently they make this in S35VN, which I'm not a huge fan of. However, this is a really good knife and it comes in at a great price. So I feel like it's probably would still be very worthwhile in grabbing one of these. So without any further ado, let's go into how this thing cuts. And then we will be taking a closer look at this on the tabletop view back home at the studio. And yeah, this is a really good looking knife, great performing knife. All right guys, so let me show you how this cuts. Nice deep hollow grind on this, and then I laid the edge back to 15 degrees per side. So that combined with the fact that Cts-Xhp takes a nasty sharp edge really makes this a lean cutting machine. Comes down super thin behind the edge and tons of bite even with a mirror edge, like butter. Only thing that I don't really like about cutting with this knife is that it has a sharpening choil from the factory. And some of you that know me well by now know that I'm a strong proponent against sharpening choils, for the simple reason that you're always going to get snagged up in the sharpening choil. And that is a big pet peeve of mine. I like knives, like it's one of the reasons I love my SPYDERCOs so much, because they, even though they don't come from the factory sharpened all the way up to the ricasso, which is this little ledge at the bottom of your edge where it goes from your you know, the blade grind that comes down towards your edge, and then that separates it from the tang of the blade, I guess you could call it. And that little ledge combined with the edge sharpened all the way down to it kind of keeps you locked into that cutting path. So there is nothing for you to snag on and you just zip through everything. Where with this, having the sharpening choil before the plunge grind, it allows you to sharpen it easier, but it causes you to get caught up in materials when you are cutting. So that is one downfall of this. And the other one being that it is no longer made in Cts-Xhp blade steel. As you just saw, got caught in that sharpening choil. Watch. See? Right there in the choil. I have to back up, go back to the edge. So if you start at the bottom of the edge, work your way towards the tip, you won't have to worry about it as much. But still, there's a lot of times when I go to cut and I go to start my cut and I end up right in that sharpening choil. So, I mean, I don't understand how anyone could really be a big fan of them because of those issues, unless you don't really do a lot of cutting, or maybe you just don't cut cardboard or anything where it's really getting snagged. I don't know. But let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments and how you feel about sharpening choils, your experiences with them. I am curious to know. What's up guys, Sean here. Welcome to the tabletop view. And on the table right here, I have a couple of my knives laid out so you can get an idea of the size of this cold steel Code 4 in comparison to some other popular models like the Spyderco Para 3, Spyderco Yojimbo 2, Spyderco Paramilitary 2, Benchmade 940, Kunwu Teo Compact, and the Zero Tolerance 0308. As I'm sure you can see, this is a good size knife. It is what I would consider to be a large knife. It is on the borderline of being an extra large knife. In reality, it's not a whole lot larger than a Paramilitary 2. It's a little bit. Overall length is very close, and as far as cutting edge goes, that's also very similar. One major difference that I will note that you can see here is just how thin this knife is. So, flip these to the side. Now the reason for this is because this is a backlock knife and it does not have any liners. It is simply a very thin aluminum scale with a stainless steel lock bar, which is the back lock, that is pinned into place. So it's a ton thinner than the 0308. Spyderco Yojimbo 2. See, it's much thinner. And even though the Spydercos do have liners, they are nested into the scales. So the liners really do not add any thickness. The main reason that they are thicker is because of the locking mechanism, which when it comes to a backlock knife, you can get a lot of strength in a small package because it is essentially two scales sandwiched against that steel lock bar, which adds strength and rigidity. One thing that I do like about backlock knives is the closed back construction. It keeps debris from getting into your knife when it's in your pocket, keeps those loose coins from getting wedged in between your blade and the handle scales or liners on the inside of your knife. So you're not going to be getting your edge all dinged up by change. And I figured might as well, it would only be appropriate to compare this to some other backlocks, which the only other backlocks that I own or enjoy are the Spyderco backlock models. One thing you'll notice is the lock bar itself is much thinner on the Spyderco, and they also do this little thumb indentation on the back of the lock, which I thoroughly enjoy. It makes it a lot more comfortable and enjoyable to disengage the lock on the Spyderco compared to the cold steel. Let's get back to the task at hand. So I did grade this on my previous grading scale that I came up with, which is the 20 categories instead of the condensed 10 categories, just because I was I wanted to, well, the problem with the 10 categories is it gets rid of some redundancies, but it makes it more difficult to completely accurately grade everything because it breaks things down a little bit more. So if a knife, say I love the pocket clip, okay, pocket clip is amazing, but I don't like how the knife carries. When I condensed it to 10 categories, there's no pocket clip category. It's just a carry category, which encompasses carrying the knife and the pocket clip. So it kind of takes away from judging each specific part of the knife. Some of you won't care. Some of you are probably like, get on with it already. But if your brain works the way mine does and you are really detail oriented, then you may be able to appreciate that. So get rid of some of these, get these out of the way. God, I love this knife. Probably be carrying this one for Wharncliffe Wednesday today. I modified this blade profile. The Damascus carbon fiber scales from knivesplus.com. Definitely go check them out. Lots of great affordable options for aftermarket parts and hardware for all kinds of knife models. Love this. Alrighty. I do have some other reviews that I did the grading for recently that will be coming up, like the Kunwu Teo Compact, this guy, which I got just recently. I'm going to carry it for about another week or so at least to make sure nothing changes, but I have the grading done on that. And then BENCHMADE Griptilian 550-1 and the BENCHMADE BAILOUT are both knives that I'm going to be reviewing. Now, I did a brief review on my favorite 3 BENCHMADE knives, or the best 3 BENCHMADE knives video that I did not long ago. Definitely recommend checking that out. But I'm going to go into a detailed review on both of those because both of those models definitely deserve it. So let's get into it. First category being ergonomics. Gave this a 4 out of 5. Now, where this loses 1 point is because of the thinness. So the thinness, you know, there's pros and cons to everything. When it comes to thinness on a knife handle, the pros are going to be, it's going to carry really well, you're going to save weight, and the cons are going to be the ergonomics. So it's going to take a hit in the ergonomics category when you go super thin, especially when you have a sharp edge. That's a big no-no when it comes to knife handles. And Cold Steel does such a damn good job with this knife. I don't know why they would not have addressed that. It's such a small little detail that could have made this a lot more comfortable, especially with it being as thin as it is. The inside edge of these scales on both sides is a little bit sharp. Now, it's not sharp enough to cut you, but I can scrape off some skin, if you can see that. Don't want to spend too much time dwelling on this fact, but yeah, sure you can hear that. That is a sharp edge. And when you are really gripping this handle tightly and you're going to work with it, that is something that you feel. You know, the fat in between your fingers gets kind of pushed in between this space here, and then the sharp edge on both sides, it doesn't hurt, but it is not comfortable. So not completely a hot spot, but just not comfortable. And for that, it loses a point. Besides that, the ergonomics are really good. The finger cutout placement and everything, your hand kind of just falls right into place naturally. Feels like a very natural grip. Good control, nice and locked in. So they did a good job. Just one little small complaint, really. Moving on to the clip. This is another category where it took a hit, and that is for 2 reasons. One, this clip was very difficult to get in and out of pocket over the lip of your pocket. It's very tight. You might be able to mitigate that by, you know, stretching it out, but this is a very tight clip. Some of you might like that. And then the other factor is because there is not very many aftermarket options for this. If you look, this has a very, very odd screw hole pattern. So I don't know why the hell they would do that. And then if you go and look at other cold steel knife models, they have a ton of different screw patterns for their clips. So it's not like a standard screw pattern like BENCHMADE does for most of their knives, or how SPYDERCO does for most of their knives. It is a unconventional pattern, and I was able to find maybe 1 or 2 options online. They are both made by companies that I'm unfamiliar with, so I don't know if I want to take a chance on those, because when it comes to pocket clips, aftermarket pocket clips, there's companies that do them right, and that would be Lynch Northwest and MXG Gear. Those are the 2 main ones that I'm familiar with. And then you have, for milled pocket clips, you know, Rip's Garage Tech does an excellent job. But if you go, just go on Amazon or eBay and search for aftermarket clips, you will see knockoffs of the Lynch Northwest or MXG Gear style clips, and they do not. Here's an example of a Lynch Northwest clip, and you can get a clip that looks identically the same, but the problem is they are not the same. Let me see if I have a clone clip. Here's a clone wire clip right here. Okay, they are not made of the same quality titanium, if it even is real titanium. They are a lot weaker, so they will bend out or break much easier, and they you know, the bends are a little bit different, just slightly, but each little detail makes a big difference in how the clip functions. And I would not recommend, would not at all recommend, buying a pocket clip off of Amazon or Etsy from a no-name brand. So, clip gets 3 out of 5. Carry gets a 5 out of 5 for the reasons that I already went over. It's nice and thin. It's decently light. It carries in the pocket very well. Once you do get that pocket clip over the lip of your pants, this knife, you know, you don't really notice it in your pocket, especially for the size of it. It does very well. Moving on to the action, I gave it a 4 out of 5. This knife is very smooth, has very good action for what it is, that being a backlock knife. Buttery smooth. Push in on this backlock, the blade drops down, give it a little shake, and it comes down the rest of the way. But if you hold this down, extremely smooth, like butter. You can easily flick it. You can easily reverse flick it. Very nice. I find myself playing with this quite often. The only reason I knocked it down a point is because this lock right here, the tension on it is pretty strong, which is good as far as, you know, being dependable, a dependable, strong lockup, but it's not necessary at all for this style of lock. You don't need that much tension, and because they don't do that nice little indentation like our friends over at SPYDERCO do, this back lock is not even nearly as comfortable to push in and disengage as the SPYDERCO is. So not very comfortable to disengage at all. But It's not a problem, not a big deal. If you don't have sissy hands, it's not going to be a problem. Moving on to the acoustics, moving on to the hardware, gave this a 4 out of 5, and that is because of the T6 hardware. Besides that, it wouldn't have lost any points, but yeah, the T6 has ruined it for me. The things that they did well is it having minimal hardware. Only 3 screws on this side and 2 on this side besides the clip screws. So really good job keeping the hardware to a minimal. And then the other fact of it being stainless steel. So it only, between it being stainless steel and the T6s is where it lost 1 point. It's not a 2-point loss because most knife companies are using stainless steel hardware. Moving on to the aesthetic, I gave it a 5 out of 5. I think this is a very good looking knife. Definitely like the aesthetics of this. Very clean and classy, yet still has a hint of tactical badassery to it. For the acoustics, I give it a 5 out of 5. Love the acoustics of this. Nice, loud, pronounced click or pop when that blade comes open and that lock engages. Love, love, love that sound. Very satisfying sound. Even if you do it slow. Love that sound. Very satisfying. Fit and finish, I give it a 4 out of 5 only because of they did not chamfer or soften the inside edges of the scales where your fingers go up against. That was a big miss in my opinion. They definitely, well, they did make a very good knife, but that was a big opportunity missed. It could have been that much better very easily. Moving on to the lockup, that gets a 5 out of 5 because of the reasons I've said. This also features Cold Steel's Triad lock, which is held in regard as the strongest locking mechanism ever to be made. It also has no type of blade play or lock rock in any direction. Lock bar access gets a 5 out of 5. 100% ambidextrous, easy to get to. You can drop it down, just have your fingers slid forward all the way, okay? As long as your finger is up here and not back here. If it's back here when you push it down, this blade is going to hit your finger. If your finger is slid forward up here, that part of the blade is going to hit your finger. So you just drop it down, move your fingers out of the way, and push it down. Very easy to do. Can do it left-handed also. Remember, slide that finger forward, drop it down, boom. So 5 out of 5 for lock bar access. For the factory edge, it got a 3 out of 5. Was not very impressive, and they did not, it was not an even edge bevel either. So the grind of the edge was uneven, and it was also not sharp, but I fixed that up. Not the end of the world. The blade gets a 4.5 out of 5. It would get a 5 out of 5. I love this blade. They did an amazing job with the nice deep hollow grind. Very slicey. Excellent cutting performance. Love this blade. Where they lost 0.5, half of a point, is with this sharpening choil. I wish they would have redesigned this some other type of way to where they could have, you know, cleared the plunge grind without adding a sharpening choil. Sharpening choils will give you plenty of sharpening life without hitting the plunge grind, so that is a plus in many people's eyes. But I am a strong proponent against sharpening choils because you will often find you will get caught up in that sharpening tool when you are cutting. As soon as you're cutting through something and that material hits that point of the edge, you are going to get caught up and have to, back the knife up and get back to the cutting portion of the edge. So you really have to pay attention when you're cutting to stay out of that, which is just not enjoyable to me. I would much rather use something like a SPYDERCO sharpened all the way up to this ricasso, which basically acts as a ledge to keep you locked in, to keep that material locked into the cutting path of your blade, which is very nice and enjoyable for cutting. Moving on to the handle. Handle gets a 4.5 out of 5, just because of what we already mentioned. Besides that, very good design, very happy with it. The centering gets a perfect 5 out of 5. This is perfectly centered, or at least it was. Yeah, perfect centering. Cutting performance gets a 5 out of 5. This thing is very slicey, excellent cutting knife. The materials gets a 4 out of 5. You have amazing blade steel, Cts-Xhp, which is one of my favorite blade steels, and they did a good job with it. This was manufactured in Taiwan. Taiwan is known for excellent quality manufacturing for knives. And yeah, the aluminum is excellent choice for a handle material. It's not as premium as, say, titanium or carbon fiber. It's cheaper than both of those, but it is just as strong for the application. It is just as good of a choice. It's also lightweight, so not knocking it. And then the hardware being stainless steel, which is also perfectly fine, but it's just not going to get the maximum possible points because it's not all top tier materials. So 4 out of 5 on the materials. Only docked at 1 point because aluminum works great, and the material that matters most to me is the blade steel, and they did an excellent job with choosing Cts-Xhp for this. Sadly, they switched to S35VN, which is a big disappointment for me, at least. If you like S35VN, I would buy this knife without a second guess. And then to a lot of people, they probably wouldn't even notice a difference. They're going to be happy with either one. But if you are big into sharpening like I am, and you're a big time steel nerd, and you do a lot of cutting, and you feel like you can tell the difference between different steels, then, it might be something to consider. Moving on to the fidget category. Fidget gets a 3 out of 5. This is not a fidget knife. Definitely not what comes to mind when I think of, hey, what knife do I want to flick? However, it does have some fidget ability to it. It is not completely unenjoyable to flick and fidget. So 3 out of 5 for that. For the overall design, I gave it a 5 out of 5. Excellent job. The price, it gets a 5 out of 5, coming in between $80 and $100. That is an absolute steal in my opinion. And the value is a 5 out of 5. You cannot get much more knife than this for this price. This might be the best value out there, to be honest with you. If they still made in Cts-Xhp, I would say it is 100% the best value out there as far as a actual cutting tool. But unfortunately, they switched. It is what it is. Total score on this came in at 88 out of 100 points. That's a very good score. And this is definitely a knife that I would highly recommend. I will add the links below. They're my Amazon affiliate links. If you use them, I will get a small commission. And I mean very small, but it is still very appreciated. So that's going to wrap it up for this one, guys. Hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all for watching. I love you guys. Jesus loves you. Stay tuned, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.